Good afternoon, everyone, and Happy New Year as we begin 2024. Welcome to the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex here on the south side as the Steelers get ready for a Saturday game. Kind of a short week flying back from Seattle, but a happy flight as they won yesterday, as you know, 30-23. Back-to-back 30-point-plus games. First time in 3 years that has happened. What an effort by the offensive line, the ground game in particular, over 200 yards on 46 attempts. Mason Rudolph doing his job down the field, 18 for 24, 274, and George Pickens in the last two games with 326 yards and 11 receptions. So his performance has certainly come to light. The defense did what it had to do given all their injuries, and they allowed field goals, but not many touchdowns in that win. So the Steelers now go to Baltimore knowing they need to win, and they're going to need some help on Sunday. A Jacksonville-Buffalo loss, either or, and you may have to wait all the way to Sunday night to get the answer to that. But first things first, head-to-head with Baltimore, the number one seed in the AFC on Saturday. Right now, Mike Tomlin is addressing the media, so let's take you to his press conference.
Good afternoon. As always, I'll start with a brief summary of our last performance. Because the turnaround so quick, man, I hadn't combed through it in the way that I normally would. And so, you know, the analysis is probably more on the surface level. But in doing so, my feelings are probably very similar to what they were last night post-game. Man, it was an appropriate effort, man. I'm appreciative of the effort of the guys. There was a certain way we needed to play in an effort to control that matchup, to control the environment. We felt like we had to win the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. We had to run the ball. We couldn't be in one-dimensional passing moments. We thought the environment would be a lot to overcome if we were in one-dimensional passing circumstances, third and long. We couldn't be highly penalized and do that. An effective run game would aid in that, minimizing the possession down component of it. And with the amount of weapons that they had on offense with Geno Smith, man, and the plethora of eligibles that he has, along with their running game, we thought possessing the football would be a means of controlling the game from that perspective as well. We got some 3-and-outs on defense. We possessed the ball on offense, and so the game unfolded the way that it unfolded from that perspective. Still can't say enough about the contributions of some people that we're getting on defense in particular. Guys like Eric Rowe, Miles Jack, in particular, 2 weeks in a row, Pat Peterson playing safety. You know, our depth is really being challenged because of the attrition component of the game at linebacker and safety. And, man, we're getting some quality efforts from some guys that hadn't been here very long, might not be new to the game, but are somewhat new to us. And the efforts and the production that we're getting out of that group, man, has been exemplary under the circumstances. Would like some more definitive stops. We kind of had a bend but don't break kind of approach. But at times, man, you got to do what you got to do based on how things are unfolding. But just appreciative of all the efforts, man. I just thought we played a 60-minute game in all three phases. We complimented ourselves, each other. We played hard. And things that you need to do this time of year as the road gets narrow. And that was a desperate group on the other side as well. And so it's just cool to rise up in those moments when you know it's a meaningful game for all parties involved, and the layers to the adversity that we faced and to overcome it. I think it's growth in that. Before I turn to Baltimore, I'll talk about some injury-related things. Elandon Roberts will play day by day and see where it leads us in terms of his availability. Same with Minka and Trenton. Thompson, don't really know where we are right now. I'd be speculating. We'll start first with partial participation on all three and check the quality of that participation, and maybe it increases or decreases based on what we see day to day, and we'll push through the week the way that we normally do. TJ got hurt late in the game. Hadn't seen him yet today. Don't anticipate it being a problem. Maybe it could be problematic at the front part of the week, but I don't know that it would jeopardize his participation. Now on to Baltimore. They're a 13-3 group. They've been steamrolling people, to be quite honest with you. The quality of Lamar Jackson's play has been exceptional. He's done an awesome job not only of late but throughout the season. Just being at the controls of what they do offensively. The prudent use of mobility that he displays and the efficient use of mobility that he displays is spectacular. He's their leading rusher, but he just does so in a really efficient manner. He doesn't absorb a lot of punishment. He knows how to play. He's talented and experienced. He's done a nice job of acclimating himself to his collection of eligibles. Zay Flowers obviously is a new target for him, and I've seen that relationship grow since game one, the first time we played him. That's a challenge. He's done an awesome job of adjusting to the absence of Mark Andrews, his draft mate, who has been a security blanket for him during their time in Baltimore. What he's done with Likely since the time that Andrews has been down has really been impressive. 4 or 5 catches a game, highlighted by the one-handed fourth down play yesterday. Odell Beckham, you name it, he's done a nice job of spreading the ball around. Bateman utilizing everyone, keeping you off balance with his unique talents, arm talents, leg talent. They're doing a nice job of throwing a collection of backs at you. Gus Edwards has a definitive style. He's downhill. You better hit and wrap and drive on him. Justice Hill is really good in the perimeter and on the perimeter. And so they got a really nice, organized and thoughtful division of labor. That's a tough nut to crack and highly efficient as we sit here today. They're ringing up points on a lot of people. On the defensive side of the ball, man, they're just really getting after people. It starts with that inside linebacker tandem, Roquan and Patrick Queen. They're a tandem for all circumstances. They're good in the run game, whether it's downhill or on the perimeter. They're good in the passing game, whether it's coverage or as blitzers or rushers. They're a catalyst for a lot that goes on with that group. They also have some other guys who are playing really well. Can't say enough about the play of Geno Stone. I think he's got 7 interceptions. Interceptions in a variety of ways. Middle of the field play, half field play, underneath defense. He's really got a nose for the ball and is showing he's a guy that's developed over his time there and really taking advantage of an opportunity to get some play and extended play. They move Hamilton down a lot in the sub-package ball and bring him a lot. And so, man, they play a lot of 3 safeties football, and they got 3 really good ones. They're very good at blitzing secondary people. Kyle Hamilton is a really good established blitzer, disruptor in the run game from a blitz perspective, productive in the passing game from a blitz perspective. I think he's got multiple sacks. I think he's got 10 TFLs. Arthur Millette is another little guy out of the secondary that they're very comfortable blitzing. He had a big sack against us in the field goal fringe that kind of kicked us out of field goal range the first time we played him earlier in the year. And so, they do a lot of things schematically on defense. It's blood in the water when they get you one-dimensional. You get behind in the game and things of that nature. And so sometimes success breeds success, like last week. They got up on Miami, man, and it just flowed. And so we better stay close. We better do a good job of making them earn it. We can't give up field-flipping plays or easy touchdown-like scores. We got to make them earn it. We got to keep the score down. We got to play tough. We got to tackle. And obviously we got to do some things on the defensive side to minimize Lamar Jackson and company. And so that's where we are. It's chess, not checkers. They know us. We know them. I think that's one of the things that makes this matchup entertaining from a fan's perspective. And so we're preparing with an edge for a lot of reasons, but first and foremost, because it's must-win for us. I'll pause and open it up for questions.
Mike, what's Kenny's status? Do you anticipate him being available to practice this week, and what's the plan at quarterback?
Yeah, I think Kenny's availability is less in question this week. I anticipate him being available to practice. That being said, we're going to leave the ball in Mason Rudolph's hands. He's done a good job, and we've done a good job in the most recent 2 weeks. We've taken care of the ball. He's taken care of the ball. We've scored points at a rate in which we hadn't done to this point this year. And with the urgency of the moment and because of those reasons, we're going to leave the ball in his hands. But I say all those things with the understanding that I know Kenny is very capable, and particularly as it pertains to this matchup, Kenny has led us to victory late in the game the last 2 times we played Baltimore. And so we feel like we got 2 capable guys. We'll proceed into the week the same way that we did last week, but just knowing that his availability is less in question.
Was Kenny cleared to play by the medical folks for this past game?
Yes.
So was it your call to make him inactive then?
Yeah, that clarity didn't come until later in the week, and it was about the distribution of reps and who was best prepared and positioned to help us win, and so that's the direction that we went with.
Why not just have him as the emergency guy in uniform then?
Because again, the likelihood of that coupled with the risk in terms of what I didn't see for him, it would have been speculating, and I just, not into speculating.
Mike, so with that anticipation, you're anticipating him to not be inactive this week?
Again, I don't have a crystal ball, but I anticipate his availability being less of an issue this week. We'll see where the week leads us.
Mike, what is it about what Mason has done to lead that offensive production that we've seen?
He's done a nice job. Like I mentioned when we inserted him, he's got a great deal of confidence in himself, and it is real. I think it's contagious. He's aggressive in style of play, and I think that's helpful, particularly when you're up against it. The calculated risk-taking associated with the pursuit of victory is important, and he's displayed those things. But it's more than obviously what he has done. It's what we have done or that collective has done. We've run the ball extremely well over the last 2 weeks. We've been in manageable possession down circumstances, run the ball well in the red area, particularly yesterday, 3 rushing touchdowns, 2 and through the red area. You're not absorbing a lot of risk when you're performing in that way. And so it's just been a good trend for us. Our desire is to keep that trend rolling. We're going into a hostile environment versus a really good opponent, one that's extremely hot, obviously. And so we better utilize all the mojo at our disposal in an effort to secure victory.
Coach, is Mason Rudolph the best quarterback on your roster right now?
I hadn't analyzed it in that way. I'm just looking at where we are and what we need to do this week. That's probably more of a end-of-the-year type analysis, man, and we're on a short week, and we're trying to put together a formula to win this game.
If you go into the playoffs, does he keep the ball?
It depends on what happens this week, to be quite honest with you, man. We're more of a day-by-day, week-by-week outfit at this point. Hypotheticals and speculation is fruitless for us. We got so many tangible challenges and so much tangible work to do. We're just not wasting a lot of time speculating and things of that nature.
Make a decision about who starts Saturday. How much in your mind do you factor in? Because that position and that decision with your franchise quarterback, the confidence of Kenny, the team's confidence in Kenny, do you let that factor in and what that might mean going forward after this week? Or
I think you factor in all variables when you make decisions. That's just a component of decision making.
Have you seen improved blocking from Pat prior to these last couple of weeks?
I don't know that I would identify it as that. I think that's a component of his game that he identified coming into the season that he desired to be better at and has worked in that regard. It might be reflected more in the last few weeks, but I think a lot of things in a positive way can be reflected in the last few weeks based on the result of our play.
John announces who's going to play and not play, but how do you prepare for a team when when their situation might sit guys, game plan wise?
We prepare for what they're capable of. We prepare for their best, and so that makes that conversation less significant. We better be prepared to defend the best of them or stop the best of them. And a component of what they do is schematics, and it's not necessarily people. And so we better be ready for the schematic component of what they do. And so that's not a big deal for us, to be quite honest with you.
Mike, you guys have been as successful against Lamar as anybody. What do you attribute that to?
Because we respect him. We respect his talents. We respect what he's capable of, and we work all week with that level of urgency and prep. And so we better do similar things this week.
Does having Miles give you guys a boost as far as communication and preparing for all the different things the Ravens like to do, and the fact that he's been part of your system and faced them?
Miles Jack?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, his history with us has been an asset from a communication perspective, no doubt. But that was one of the reasons why we were really interested in acquiring him.
From your perspective, how's Kenny handling this situation where he feels like he's good enough to play, he's healthy enough, but obviously he's not in there right now?
Man, he is a competitor. He wants the football. He wants to play. But at the same time, he's a team player. And so, our agenda is winning football games right now. And so I imagine that's everyone's mindset.
Mike, how's the relationship with Eddie and Mike Sully working? I mean, obviously you've got production, and has this arrangement affected at all the way you guys approach that job when you look for a full-time replacement in the offseason?
Really, man, we're just day to day and week to week. They've done a nice job. We got a big challenge ahead of us this week, and I don't know that any of us are looking beyond it from that perspective.
Mike, Mason's had a lot of success with George in the last couple of weeks. How's he created that chemistry so fast and not as many game reps this year?
We run the ball extremely well. When you run the ball well, you get single high, you get one-on-one matchups, and usually those one-on-one matchups breed opportunity. And so the source of that production is probably the effectiveness of the run game, to be quite honest with you.
What do you attribute that effectiveness to with the accumulation of your run game, offensive line, and running backs?
It's just been building over the course of the season. I think that arrow's been pointed up the entire time. Certainly.
Like you guys are in the air flying back from the West Coast and find out you have to have a short week. What's your reaction to that? How does that impact you?
We have no reaction. You give us a date, a time, a game location, an opponent, we'll be there. That's what we do. There was a certain level of anticipation regarding it. I've been in the league a while. I kind of know how these things might unfold. It's insignificant. We'll be challenged at the front part of the week from a coaching strategy standpoint. It won't affect our physical prep in terms of it being a short week, but we're familiar with them. And so, when they first started playing Thursday night games, it was oftentimes the second time you played a division opponent because that strategy component of it, the familiarity from a planning perspective, is more fluid. And so that's probably our mindset and my mindset regarding this. It's a short week, but it's a highly familiar opponent. Really, who is it being inconvenienced are the coaches in terms of us squeezing the front part of the week and not the back part of the week. And so it would be no excuses in terms of how we perform on Saturday.
Like in a weird way, is there a benefit to being first out of the gate and knowing that you don't have to watch the scoreboard because what happens?
We do not care. We don't.
How does Kenny, you tell Kenny his role this week or even on Sunday, how is he reacting to that? Is he?
I'm not getting into all of that. I'll let him speak for himself. You guys can ask him when he has availability later in the week.
Mike, you mentioned Eric Rowe's productivity. I mean, Miles obviously had familiarity with the system. What's allowed him to dial in on a relatively short time?
Eric Rowe, he's a veteran guy. He's been in some systems. He's been around. He's been in multiple teams and multiple schematic circumstances, and he's a sharp guy. And so usually under those circumstances, it's not learning what to do. It's just learning what to call it. Or the translation of what he already knows. And so I'd imagine his learning process is probably quicker than most.
Like, what have you seen out of Joey Porter Jr.? Twice he was targeted in the key points late in the game, and both led to incompletions.
Yeah, he doesn't run from the fight. He runs to the fight. It's legitimate. He always wants to be in the big matchup and in the big moment. Respect that about his approach. Mindset has a lot to do with success. And so he's trending and developing and growing in all the right ways and getting challenged in big moments and standing up against those challenges is just a component of his growth and maturation process and displaying the type of player that he needs to be and wants to be and is becoming.
Joey included, but also beyond him, how would you evaluate how all those rookies are proceeding into playing in late December, early January, that so-called wall that guys can hit it?
I think all the guys are trending in the right way, but we were kind of thoughtful and intentional about when we put them in the lineup and how they got in the lineup. None of those guys were opening day starters and that type of a deal. And so, it's late in the season for all of us, but it's probably less mileage on those guys than some of the veteran guys. Broderick, Benton, Joey, and specifically those three. We're 5-6 weeks into the season before they start having substantial roles, and I think that has put them in position to be trending in the direction that they're trending.
Running game, the offensive line, or something these last couple of weeks, specifically why it's been so good, the line?
Sometimes it's just circumstantial. Styles make fights. We felt like we had a good matchup last week in terms of us being able to do the things that we desired to do. There were concerns about the environment, but we felt good about our plan and our ability to do the things that we desired to do. There's a lot of variables that kind of, shape up the effectiveness or the challenge of running the football. And sometimes it's less about you, and sometimes a lot about the people that you play or in the environments that you play in as well.
Mike, and Mason's been through a lot in his 6 years. It's been an eventful time for him. The way that he's approached it professionally, sort of, and then getting this opportunity sort of unexpectedly and performing, does that resonate throughout the locker room, do you think?
I think that happens all the time in the National Football League. Attrition is very much a component of our game. This is not a patient man's business, but I always ask people to work while they wait for opportunity. And he is just an example of that, a guy that is prepared when opportunity presents itself and is stepping through an open door. But that happens every week on every team, particularly at this portion of the season when the attrition component is what it is. We're talking about Eric Rowe and Miles Jack on the other side. I just think that that's a component of the team. That's a component of the journey that is a season. And that's why you're always working to develop any and everyone because you never know when you got to call upon them.
When you have a player like that, and it's not just Mason, any player that steps into that opportunity and has success, as a coaching staff, do you guys sit around sometimes, how did we miss this? How did this guy not get on the field?
There's a fine line between being a backup and a Pro Bowler in the National Football League. They're all professionals. They're all really good at what they do. And so what might seem like a large space from the outside looking in, all professional running backs could run through this room and not get tackled by anyone. And so is that perspective of it. They're all professionals. They're all capable. I don't know that any of us are shocked when any of those professionals perform really well, particularly when prepared.
Like with what's happened the last couple of weeks and what potentially could happen these next couple of weeks, has it or can it affect the organization's plan at quarterback going forward next season or anything?
Again, we focused on today and this week. We can waste a lot of time this week speculating in those ways.
How have you seen Mason's demeanor change from a young guy in 2019 getting thrown in there to somebody who didn't even know he'd be here this season?
His demeanor has always been pretty steady and the same, man. He's got a great deal of confidence in himself. He's good with people. He's smart. He's engaging. He communicates well.
Anyone else?
Because you potentially sound like you'll have Pickett available, would you be more willing to make a switch in game because you have your starter in uniform if you do?
Again, speculation.
Like when you look at the Ravens, you saw them back in October. What's the biggest difference between then and this week now?
I don't know that there is. To be quite honest with you, they were like a 3-1 team when we saw them. They were dangerous and capable in a lot of ways, offensively, defensively, special teams. It looks very similar. Obviously, there's a bigger body of work or body of evidence, but it's more of the same, to be quite honest with you. They're a really good football team.
Anyone? All right.
Thank you.
All right, that's Mike Tomlin here on a Monday, joined by Missy Matthews, who had a long flight back too, so wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, ready to go here today. And
Happy New Year, week 18.
It is, and it just keeps on going. We hope there are more weeks after this, but it'll take a win in Baltimore. And again, in case you joined us late, Mike Tomlin says the quarterback situation remains in the hands of Mason Rudolph, although Kenny Pickett, who was cleared medically last week and could have been there, his availability is less in question. So that's a good thing to have, knowing they're going week to week, and that's pretty much their mantra at this point. They have to go week to week. They're just trying to win games, so best available guys, and Mason Rudolph is hot.
Yeah, and of course there was a lot of questions, I think, because when he was going through the injuries, Kenny Pickett was not in that group. Reporters had to ask about it, and as you said, cleared later in the week. Last week heading into Seattle, said because of the distribution of reps, felt like they were going to stick to the plan that they had. But there's a lot of questions about what will happen after this week, after the playoffs, after the season. And it really is, they have to focus on Week 18 in Baltimore. Whoever plays for the Ravens, they have the 1 seed locked up, but for the Steelers, they have to win, and then they need help, and they might not know until Sunday night if it comes down to the, Bills-Dolphins game, but it's just the position that they're in right now. But if you don't take care of business in Baltimore at M&T Bank Stadium, none of it matters.
And listen, the bottom line is you have a hot quarterback who's good at standing in the pocket, appraising what's going on, going through his progressions, and he's done that very well. And that throw to Pickens late in the game where he stood in the pocket and was not going to leave and put it right on the money, that was indicative of what Mason Rudolph has been able to do. And I think it is a contagious thing. I think this team, you can tell you were there, Missy, on the sidelines. It feels like they're confident as a unit as a result of all of this.
I think it's just been great the past 2 weeks, but I will say that was my first time in Seattle. It was extremely loud. I would say louder than Kansas City. But I did think, the Steelers worked through and knew what to expect and were prepared by Coach Tomlin and the coaching staff controlling the line of scrimmage. They didn't have the false start penalties that the home team had. And I just thought that they were able to work through the communication issues. There were a few times where Mason Rudolph couldn't even hear the play coming in. They did call a timeout at one point, but that's expected when you're playing in an atmosphere like that. And the Seahawks were playing for something too. So it's no surprise what it was, but there were a lot of Steelers fans there, which was great. It was pretty much filled behind the Steelers bench, which was cool to see. And they were very vocal for good reason.
Yeah, and you don't see that normally in Seattle, but it was very prevalent yesterday. All right, we have a lot to break down. We'll talk about their offensive game plan, running the football as well as they did, opens up things in the past game. One helps the other. And the defense, given all the injuries, still able to, force teams into field goals and not touchdowns. We have a lot to get into, and then we'll look ahead to the Baltimore game coming up Saturday at 4:30, all right here on KDKA Plus and Steeler Digital platforms. We're back in a flash.
Gear up with game day necessities at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline gear, jerseys, terrible towels, memorabilia, and custom exclusives directly from the team. You can also gear up online at shop.steelers.com.
How does it feel, what you guys have been able to do the last 2 games?
Man, it feels good, Shout out my boy 2-9, man. Levy, Shout out KZ23, he ain't here with us, but he turning up. It's just good to get those 2 wins after those 3 losses. This is the way to bounce back, especially at their spot. Yeah, we needed this for sure.
Talk about at the end of the game. They were coming at you. How does it feel to kind of hold your ground out there?
It feel good, They try to rock me off, man. Say, no, I ain't playing. They ain't writing me off. But, no, but it was good. I always look for those type of competitions in that moment. I was ready for that. He was too, and I just had to show up.
What does it say about this defense? You guys are just, putting guys in different places, moving guys around, and you guys are still getting it done.
We always kept that next man up mentality, and I feel like everybody that's stepped up and playing a great role. Ero, he been coming in making plays in and out. Pat P at safety making plays. So we got the pieces and we're just putting them together.
Last 2 games, the way you guys played, what does it do for this team heading into that final game? I know playoff door's still open. You need a little help, but the way this team's playing right now.
Man, we just worrying and focusing on us and what we could do. And Coach T always say control the controllables. And that's all we got to do. We just got to keep winning. And we got 1 more ahead of us, and we're going to just do what we can to get that victory.
I guess through the sack fumble and what you saw on it.
First of all, just all glory to God. I wouldn't be here without him. And shout out to all my teammates, all my coaches, everybody in the facility, make this happen on game day. Like I said earlier, just never know when my number's going to get called. And standard is a standard.
What happened on that play that you thought, okay, I can get this ball out?
I kind of just, whenever I get my chance, I just go, and try to make. TJ always talks about being a splash, making a splash play for the team. That's kind of our motto in the outside back room. My opportunities are limited on the defensive side, which I know that. So I just got to come in ready to keep that standard up.
Feels like every time you do something good, you give that ball to Coach Tomlin. Is that like an inside joke, or what is that?
Yeah, he's been talking to me about that since OTAs. He's talking about, hey, Eric, bring that ball to me, man. When you get that ball, bring it to me. So, we just always talk about that, and I got the ball, so I had to give it to him.
What was Geno doing so well? It felt like TJ, everybody was getting so close to getting home, and he just was able to get out.
No, Geno's a heck of a player, man, a heck of a quarterback. He's a vet.
Experience the legacy of the Steelers like never before. Step into the Steelers Hall of Honor Museum at Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of Steelers history, rare artifacts, and interactive exhibits. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
He's done a nice job. Like I mentioned when we inserted him, he's got a great deal of confidence in himself, and it is real. I think it's contagious. He's aggressive in style of play, and I think that's helpful, particularly when you're up against it. The calculated risk-taking associated with the pursuit of victory is important, and he's displayed those things. But it's more than obviously what he has done. It's what we have done, or that collective.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin talking about calculated risk-taking, and that's something that Mason Rudolph has done in 2 games here now. He hasn't thrown an interception despite throwing the ball deep, and that's one of the missing things that we really did not see in the first half of this season, the deep component to their game. It's all possible because of a run game that's been very healthy. But he's good about knowing when to throw the ball and taking advantage of those opportunities. Yeah, they're risky, but when you got one-on-one coverage, normally, if you put the ball in the right spot, then good things are going to happen for your offense, and they have for the Pittsburgh Steelers, specifically George Pickens.
Right, and like you said, not turning the ball over, taking care of it, having the run game come back to life, the O-line just playing as well as they have all season. It helps a defense that clearly is dealing with the attrition of injuries in the season, as Coach Tomlin likes to say, especially in the middle. So it helps keep them off the field. And, for the Steelers defense yesterday, they were up, for the task of going against those guys. Just seeing DK Metcalf in person, you're just like, wow, this is like a tight end that runs like a wide receiver and is just one of those freak of nature athletes. But the Steelers offense did what they needed to do. Which was good to see for 2 straight games, and you need to do it again and hopefully more if you get the chance.
Well, Mike Tomlin was also asked in that press conference about what happens, if the quarterback situation continues to do well, if Mason Rudolph takes them, they win a game, get in the playoffs, and how will that affect next year? He was not going to talk about that. It's strictly week to week, and it should be at this point because that's all you're playing for. But I will say this run game, boy, you look at it, what it's done the last couple of weeks, and I think even though Mike Tomlin has been sort of a bell cow running back. He likes one guy. I think this division of labor has helped both. In other words, less is more in times, Missy, because you can split the difference of pressure as a result. And they were running angrily again last game.
Yeah, they both had that angry run, but I think they're also different in their own way as well, if that makes sense. The defenses having to prepare for both of those guys. I think it was Kenny Pickett earlier in the season, or maybe even the preseason, who referred to them as thunder and lightning. And I think we're really seeing that as the season has progressed and you head into the final game this week, really. And it's been good to see just both of them having the success and just literally carrying people, whether it's an extra 5 yards into the end zone. The stiff arms, they just have that nasty demeanor about them. And I'm not surprised if people don't want to try to tackle them.
Yeah, stiff arms by both. You saw the one there by Jalen Warren. The one coming up on Najee Harris was also very good. The blocking down here by Moore and then George Pickens, who's engaged. And I think he's more engaged because he's more involved in the game plan.
And everybody is. I thought it was great to see Pat Freiermuth more involved in the game plan in terms of catching the ball. But he also displayed, the blocking. They used that 3 tight end set a lot again, which I think they had success with going back to the game in Cincinnati. And it was something that they did a lot against Seattle as well. And it just seemed like, that tight end group was having fun doing the dirty work, the blocking, but also getting a chance to catch the ball.
There's no question about that. And, bottom line is when you put up that kind of numbers, 46 carries, 202 yards, you're wearing down a defense. It also helps your own defense,
right,
which has been hurt with injury, and you don't want to be on the field all that much, and they really weren't comparatively. The time of possession difference was significant in this game, and I think that's the key to how they play. And if they can possess the ball, it makes things a lot better for their own defense. But, man, overall, I thought the offensive line, since we're talking about running game, you can't, these guys work in anonymity. They don't get a lot of attention, which is a good thing. They just do their job. They don't care to have it. But boy, is it necessary. And I thought Dan Moore, despite a lot of critics, people out there saying, well, Broderick Jones was brought in to take his job, he's refused to give it up and thus Jones has moved to the other side, and he seems pretty comfortable there.
And Dan Moore definitely helped, get Jaylen Warren into the end zone on his touchdown as well. But I think, we're not talking about individual guys on the offensive line anymore. It's the O-line as a unit, as a group, and that's when they're doing good things. When it's talking about individuals, that means something's happening too consistently in a negative form, and they've turned it on. The whole offense, just to see them score 30 points and it just felt easy is not something that we've probably felt here in Pittsburgh in quite some time.
Exactly. It hasn't happened in 3 years. But Najee Harris, you saw the one touchdown where he got in and kept his balance somehow, some way, not letting the knee touch. And then you have this one where a rugby thing breaks out, and then he gets pushed in. No tush push in there.
There's the tight ends. Look at
them. They're all three, and they all took credit for the touchdown. They wanted a game ball. But the one other play that I thought really summed up Najee Harris in this game was his alertness on the field, where he slid before the end zone just to keep the clock running. Mm-hmm. He had an easy touchdown. It would have been a third touchdown of the day for him.
The hat trick, yeah.
The hat trick, and he did not do it. He instead just decided to, I'll make sure I slide short, keep the clock rolling. That's our best friend.
Right. And as soon as that happened, it reminded me of Minka Fitzpatrick. Could have had the easy pick six in Atlanta last year. He knew what to do to ice the victory. And same thing for Najee. That's things, they're coached. They've learned throughout the years. And to have the awareness, as you said, in the moment, I'm sure it's tempting. And then you have to stop yourself. It helps your team, and they got the win.
They got the win. A much-needed win, 30-23, against a team that was just as hungry as they were, Seattle. And they have to win now and get a little help as well as a result of that game. So the Steelers now face Baltimore. On the surface, just before we go to break, we'll talk more about Baltimore, but this is a team that's done everything well. I looked at their schedule at one point and said they got these tough games at San Francisco, followed by Miami. They're taking on big teams, and yet they've pretty much had it their way all the way through. And I think that has elevated Lamar Jackson to the head of the class when it comes to MVP of the league.
Yeah, and especially after yesterday's performance, we were watching it a little bit up in the press box before going down to the field. You're like, oh wait, they just scored again. They scored, and then people start telling you the score, and they were just firing on all cylinders. As coach said, steamrolling people. That's not an understatement.
No, it isn't, and they've had their share of injuries too, but they've able to just move on with guys who are unproven, like Mitchell, the running back, who also got injured. He's out for the year, but they just keep lining up with people, and it's not going to be easy, even though at this point, we don't know what Baltimore will do. What is your guess? Because we debated this yesterday on the postgame show, Chris Hoke and I, about what they would do. Chris believes, because the rivalry is so intense, that John Harbaugh wants to win it and will do things, but I just can't imagine him risking a guy like Lamar Jackson.
I'm sure it's tempting, because if they win, the Steelers are out. There's a scenario where if they lose, three other things have to happen, but I'm sure that's tempting. At the same time, you have the 1 seed, that you have a bye. Lamar is healthy at this point in the season, which was not the case last year when they made it to the playoffs. I don't know why you would want to risk injury, but I don't know. John Harbaugh speaks today, I think, at 2 or 2:30, so I'll be anxious to hear if he lets on anything in terms of his plans or the availability of his players.
We'll talk more about that, and also the playoff situation, how it affects the Steelers and what they have to do, plus what help they need. All coming up as we continue live here on KDK Plus and Steeler Digital platforms. This is the Mike Tomlin Press Conference Show.
Experience the legacy of the Steelers like never before. Step into the Steelers Hall of Honor Museum at Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of Steelers history, rare artifacts, and interactive exhibits. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
Back to that call to Pickens, it shows some confidence in the quarterback, doesn't it?
I think in that look, there's probably a lot of quarterbacks that could have completed that one with no safety help. George got the separation, but yeah, I guess I'm appreciative that I don't know. I think a lot of coaches and a lot of play callers want to be conservative there and just run it out, but we got a very aggressive head coach who I think he made that call at the end of the day, and so it paid off.
Mason, does any of this surprise you these last 2 weeks?
Yes and no. I didn't really. You never know what can happen, and like I said, God orchestrates things in different ways, and it's. But I told the people out there, I thought probably be what happened last year. I didn't get a start. There wasn't a opportunity to jump in there and finish the year riding the old pine. So thankful that I got a break and had an opportunity to lead our team. It's just fun, man, playing football after not doing a whole lot of that for the last few years. So, but yeah.
Is it personally rewarding to you that it's the best 2 offensive performances of the year back to back?
I haven't looked at I haven't looked at the film obviously or statistically, but I don't really care much about. We knew we had to get a win in Seattle on the road in a very tough spot with a team who's trying to make the playoffs as well, who's got everything to play for. And, once again, so enjoyable to take all the reps this week in practice and build the confidence and just I just don't have enough reps with those guys. And we had a good week and felt good going into it.
Was there a particular pass that when you hit it, you thought, okay, this is going to be a pretty good game?
You try not to. I mean, you get into a groove. Yes, I think. When the Deontay fumble and then it became a fumble out of bounds. That was always a nice one to get on your side because. That could have turned the ball game a different way early.
Gear up with game day necessities at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline gear, jerseys, terrible towels, memorabilia, and custom exclusives directly from the team. You can also gear up online at shop.steelers.com.
Standpoint, it won't affect our physical prep in terms of it being a short week. But we're familiar with them. And so, when they first started playing Thursday night games, it was oftentimes the second time you played a division opponent because that strategy component of it, the familiarity from a planning perspective.
All right, that's Mike Tomlin talking about the Baltimore Ravens. And again, it's sort of a wild card trying to figure out how they're going to play this game. They've been in this position before. You might remember they had the number 1 seed and they used RG3 a few years ago and they beat the Steelers. So. And I agree with what he's saying. There are so many guys in this game who may not be household names that you know and recognize. That doesn't mean they're not capable. Just look at the Steelers. Guys like Eric Rowe who've come in. Other people who have, gotten off the couch like Miles Jack and have contributed. They're all good players. It's just a matter of opportunity. So not sure what to expect in Baltimore this week.
It's very interesting, and I don't think that John Harbaugh is going to give anything away today, if I had to guess. And it's going to be one of those wait-and-see things. But I don't know. Again, you have the 1 seed. I know they have the bye week, but why would you risk injury to your team that is playing so well? And, the only team it feels like in the AFC that has it all together right now.
Yeah, the only thing I'd say is they may use a final preseason game mentality. A couple of series. I remember Tony Dungy talking about the layoff the Colts had gone through. When they clinched so early, they had a few weeks, and they're kind of in this gray area of should I play guys just to keep them going or not? And it turned out that they didn't, and they did not look good in the postseason as a result. I don't know if this would be the same case here, but you may want to get some of these guys, and you can't avoid all of them. There's only so many roster spots you have, and people have to play, so people have to play. And I think John Harbaugh will probably want to beat the Steelers just for that reason, to know that you can knock them out. But at what risk level do you go to do that? So that's going to be the interesting thing to see. But Tyler Huntley knows how to play too, and he's gotten his chances.
Yeah, and I agree with you. If you sit 2 weeks, you don't do anything that can hurt you. I think it's different though than the preseason where you're just doing the OTAs, the mini camp, the football in shorts, then you go into training camp and not playing in the preseason, real football, live football. I do think you see that in teams in the beginning of the regular season. I feel like they've just played so much football at this point. Some guys might need the rest and welcome the rest.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin had an interesting comment about the fine line that being on an NFL team regular roster or a practice squad or getting that opportunity. And Tyler Huntley's one of those guys. He made a Pro Bowl. He may not have originally deserved it, but he got in there. And this is what he had to say about the level of competition you could find in the NFL.
There's a fine line between being a backup in a Pro Bowler in the National Football League. They're all professionals. They're all really good at what they do. And so what might seem like a large space from the outside looking in, all professional running backs could run through this room and not get tackled by anyone. And so is that perspective of it. They're all professionals. They're all capable. I don't know that any of us are shocked when any of those professionals perform really well, particularly when prepared.
All right, so regardless, they got to win, and I think it's a good thing. You know, I know Mike Tomlin doesn't want to talk about these kind of things, but I think most fans do. That instead of going up against other games where you're kind of watching, flicking back and forth, looking at scores, and players, I'm sorry, I got to believe they do that in game as well. If they know a team's playing that they have to lose, they don't have to worry about that. They're the only game in town on Saturday at 4:30. But they have to win, then they have to hope the next day. So it's a little easier, maybe not, watching on Sunday when they need, what has to happen?
Well, the easiest way is to win and then
Right.
get some help, of course. Jacksonville losing, that's one way.
And they haven't played well, and who knows if Lawrence is going to play.
Right, that's one of the big questions as well. And it just felt like since he got hurt in that Thursday night game where things didn't go their way, they've kind of been on shaky ground there as well. But also, you want the Bills to lose in Miami. Now, who knows what's going to happen with Miami? They're dealing with a number of injuries as well, but I can't imagine having 56 points scored against you, playing at home to end it with a chance to really improve your playoff status, that you wouldn't want to go all out in that game. I think if the game was in Buffalo, I might be more worried, but I don't know. It's the NFL. Something shocks me every week, and who knows what's going to happen this weekend, but this is exactly what the NFL wants. It is why they literally were waiting until the end of that Sunday night game. We were on the plane like, what day are we playing?
Right.
What's happening? And this is what they want.
Yeah, they want large viewership, and they're going to get it. And it starts with 4:30 games. Steelers, pure and simple, got to win that game. There is a scenario out there that if they lose, they still can somehow back in if all this stuff happens. But it involves ties and things that probably will never happen. So you win. You hope the Tennessee Titans could give them a little holiday gift and beat Jacksonville. It could be C.J. Beathard starting in that game. Who knows who's going to start for the Titans, because I saw yesterday where Levis got carted off again. So who knows? It'd probably be Ryan Tannehill, I would guess. And then at night, that's a division game. Whoever wins takes the division. There's a lot of pride in that regardless of where they play the game. So.
Well, and there is a scenario, though, I saw Tom Pelissero from NFL Network tweeted for the Bills that if the Steelers win, I think Jacksonville, if they lose, they don't even make the playoffs.
So they can go from 8-3, winning the division easily, to not even making the playoffs. So It's crazy. It's the way they want it. That's the way they're going to get it. And we're going to talk more about this Mike Tomlin press conference that happened about 50 minutes ago. We'll do it when we come back right here on KDKA Plus and Steeler Digital platforms. Don't go away.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
Jim, here you are again, needing another win, hoping for a little bit of help on the outside in the final week. Is your 34-year-old nerves are getting frayed a little bit from that year after year?
Don't have nerves at this point. I think those went away, 5 or 6 years ago. But, fighting back. 9-7 right now. A chance to qualify for the playoffs. Whatever cards you're dealt, you deal with it. And to have a chance this late in the season to get in the playoffs, that's all we're hoping for. We need help, but that help doesn't happen unless we take care of our business.
And what's it mean to score 30 points in 2 games in a row from you from a defensive standpoint?
We haven't been on our best on defense, but to have an offense that is going out there giving us 30 points, that's a lot to rely on. I hate to say it gives us more room for error, but it's a team game, and to have that complementary football where if we give up a score, the offense goes down and gets another touchdown, you really do appreciate that.
Cam, a lot of your teammates seem to have embraced win or else, must win the last 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Why has getting back into a corner seemingly brought out the best in your team?
It's funny. Some of our younger guys, that's what they were raised on. In college, it's win or else. You really don't have that separation to really lose a game or there. So from a young guy's perspective, it's you have to win. And I like to say we're trending in the right direction, but this game is not indicative of the next. And so we have to go out there and prepare.
Calling all football enthusiasts. Immerse yourself in the captivating world of the Steelers at the new Steelers Hall of Honor Museum located inside Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of history where interactive videos, music, and engaging exhibits await. Feel the thrill of the broadcast booth as you make your mark on a historic Steelers play call. Plus, get up close to the iconic Super Bowl rings, game-worn uniforms, and priceless artifacts. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
We were kind of thoughtful and intentional about when we put them in the lineup and how they got in the lineup. None of those guys were opening day starters and that type of a deal. And so, it's late in the season for all of us, but it's probably less mileage on those guys than some of the veteran guys. Broderick, Benton, Joey, and specifically those three. We're 5-6 weeks into the season before they start having substantial roles, and I think that has put them in position to be trending in the direction that they're trending.
Yeah, a lot of people were wondering about that, but that's a good strategy. This season is longer than it's ever been now with 17 games. These guys are not used to playing this amount of games, so as Mike Tomlin says, they were thoughtful. One guy who it seems like no matter what he does is Nick Herbert. Every time he gets in there, he makes something happen. He hasn't had many opportunities because of Highsmith and Watt. And knock on wood, they've been healthy. Golden gets in there. But when he gets in there, and he did it again yesterday, immediately goes around the edge, forces a fumble, gets a strip sack, and a fumble recovery. And that guy has a motor. And he also has kind of the chip on the shoulder that Jalen Warren had as an undrafted guy. They know that they're going to make the most of every single rep they get.
Yeah, and as you said, very limited, but he is available, and when he does get the opportunity, he usually cashes in and takes advantage. And it was one of those days where you were kind of scratching your head. How is TJ and Alex not getting Geno Smith down? How many instances did you see where it was so close and he, was able to get out of the pocket and move? So it was good to see that finally happen, but especially for a rookie, when you want everybody to be playing at their best now, he feels comfortable, and he's learning from 2-3 amazing guys who are really good at their position. So good to see and happy for him, and he was definitely excited on the sidelines and after the game. You could tell that it meant a lot to him, said it might have been the best play of his life.
Yeah, and TJ Watt, a fellow Wisconsin guy, very happy for his success. But one thing I got to say, Watt got injured yesterday, and Mike Tomlin said today that maybe limited, but he doesn't expect that he won't be available. He'll be available, it looks like, on Saturday. Man, there were a lot of holding calls that weren't called against him. And the frustration level, you were there, you can probably sense it more palpable to you than it is watching on television. But it seems like TJ Watt's getting a little annoyed with the non-holding calls. There's so many little things called, but that is obvious to me and to a lot of people. Was it obvious there too?
You mean him getting tackled?
Tackled, and that's where the injury happened.
Yeah, his brother JJ, I always check his Twitter out after games because he usually has everything ready to go on his timeline of the different things that happened. But I mean, that was just crazy on that play where he was legitimately tackled, and that's probably where he was injured. Obviously, he was able to go back in and continue to play, but yeah, they taped up his ankle. TJ was literally sitting on a water cooler. The trainers were taping his ankle, and he's holding a surface, flipping out about whatever was happening from the play he was watching. As soon as they were done, helmet on the sideline, he was like, let's go, I'm ready. That's, not that you would expect any difference from TJ Watt.
That's right. We're due for a break. We'll take it, come back and wrap it up right here at the UPMC Rooney Sports Complex. We'll be right back.
Calling all football enthusiasts. Immerse yourself in the captivating world of the Steelers at the new Steelers Hall of Honor Museum located inside Acrisure Stadium. Explore over 10,000 square feet of history where interactive videos, music, and engaging exhibits await. Feel the thrill of the broadcast booth as you make your mark on a historic Steelers play call. Plus, get up close to the iconic Super Bowl rings, game-worn uniforms, and priceless artifacts. Plan your visit today at Steelers.com/museum.
How satisfying is it to have put together back-to-back offensive performances like that, especially this time of year?
Yeah, man, it's good. It shows the progression we're having, and showing the grit that we have, the resiliency. It just shows us a lot just about the offense. Like I said earlier, we had a lot of distractions this year, and for Coach Sully and Coach Falk, and just to have a good game plan, execute it, and the O-line coming through, man. I think that just show you what type of team that we are.
A couple guys said that for you, when you get one big run and another, you kind of build on them. Just what was the key for you today to have such a big game?
Well, the key wasn't for me, really. It was just for all of us. Us running backs knew what we had to do to win the game. Just like last time, we had to establish a run so guys could play off of it. The receivers could make the plays, and even in certain plays that, maybe Jalen have that kind of sparks the offense. We have to build off of that, and it opens up a lot of things. Us running the ball inside a lot create a lot of, good plays on the edge for guys to break runs and make plays. Just establishing a run helped out a lot.
I know you're tight with Marshawn. What was it like having him here today? Did you feel like you were channeling him a little bit with some of those runs that you had?
Channeling him? No, I did not. No. But it's always good to see Marshawn. My whole, pretty much the guys that's in my circle, really, they was all there at the game. This is a place obviously that's close to home, so a lot of guys were able to make it. So it was good seeing Sean. It's actually surprised me because he's always traveling everywhere, and I guess I was on the field and stretching, and he just came up and hugged me. So did B and everybody else. So it was good to see my team. I haven't seen them in a minute. I just talked to them over the phone because of the distance.
Want to get gear direct from the team? Shop all things black and gold at the official Steelers Pro Shop located at Acrisure Stadium. Get the latest sideline apparel and hats, jerseys of your favorite players, authentic memorabilia, custom gear, and exclusives you can only find here. Don't forget, you aren't game day ready without a terrible towel. The Steelers Pro Shop has everything you need to be part of the legendary Steelers Nation. Come experience the Acrisure Stadium shopping environment or shop online at shop.steelers.com.
Elandon Roberts will play day by day and see where it leads us in terms of his availability. Same with Mika and Trenton. Thompson, don't really know where we are right now. I'd be speculating. We'll start first with partial participation on all three and check the quality of that participation, and maybe it increases or decreases based on what we see day to day, and we'll push through the week the way that we normally do.
All right, and TJ Watt, the other one, he was injured in-game in Seattle yesterday. Coach Tomlin said he may be limited. It is a short week, playing on Saturday at 4:30 in Baltimore, traveling on Friday. So even shorter in terms of that for the Steelers. But the other injury news, Kenny Pickett was cleared at the end of last week by the medical staff. And Coach Tomlin said it was the distribution of snaps in practice, why he felt comfortable sticking with Mason, and still going to stick with Mason for this week as well.
All right, that's going to wrap it up. One news that just came out, Bradley Chubb, ACL. He played late in the game. It was a blowout. So he won't be available for that Bills game with the Dolphins. That's going to do it. Happy New Year. We'll see you next week.